Okay, welcome everybody to the first edition of the Alcohol-Free Revolution podcast. Nearly messed it up as I said it at the very beginning there. My name is Steve Smith.
And my name's James Lloyd.
And welcome everybody. We are currently recording from our swanky Surrey studios. The sun is shining. James, did you get everything that you put on your rider? Your peanut M&Ms and your tap water?
All that garbage, yeah. And I've cut out the UPF, so it's just a nice bottle of Voss sparkling mineral water for me. Thanks, Steve.
And served at room temperature as requested, I hope.
For sure.
Cool. Well, you join us here. So we are just basically two guys. We are going to chat about the joys of alcohol-free life. We don't really care whether you're alcohol-free or not and how long you've been alcohol-free for, whether it's something you're thinking about to go to in the future, or whether or not you're just 10 years in, 20 years in, whatever. Everybody's welcome here. So, as I say, my name's Steve Smith. My colleague, James Lloyd, we're going to be joining you today. And as our first episode, we kind of wanted to really run a Meet the Hosts episode because I think important moving forward. It's a good opportunity for us to tell us a little bit about ourselves and what's brought us through to this alcohol-free journey for us. So, how are you doing today, James?
Mate, I am super excited for today. We've been talking about this, you and I, for a couple of months, and I am so excited to do this. It's just going to be brilliant. I've been listening to podcasts since podcasts were a thing, and I've always wanted to do one. Just like you, I'm deeply passionate about alcohol-free living. We're both coaches, and I can't wait just to chew the fat with you today.
It's great, and I'm looking forward to it too. And I'm sure all three of our listeners out there are super suitably listening as well. But let's hope that grows going forward. But yeah, so a little bit about myself, James. We actually met up, right, James, on when we trained with Andy Ramage last year on the Become Coaches. And I think through our conversations and become mates through that, and through our conversations, we realised we're not actually that far apart on our alcohol-free journey. So between us, if I'm not wrong, we've probably racked up 8 years.
Yeah, about that. So I'm 4 years in September. So I went alcohol free. I think it was the 4th of September 2021, and I think you've got about 3 or 4 months. You've done your 4 months now, right?
Like 4 years. So I just clocked
4 years. Sorry, it wasn't 4 months. 4 years.
Yeah, 4 years. I clocked that up on the 27th of June, which was a bit of a milestone. But for me, I kind of check back from time to time. But I'm glad enough and happy enough to say that I think I'm far enough through that journey now that I'm not necessarily 100% day counting, but I'll always hop on and check out from time to time how I am. And normally it's when that year rolls around. So yeah, for me, it was a 4-year anniversary just a couple of weeks ago. And I celebrated it by going down to Germany with a good friend of mine and doing an Ironman a couple of days ago. So if I sound a little bit tired, that's just, well, it's not jet lag, it's just stupidity. So yeah, but back to the British sun. So that for me, bit about me, that's kind of my passion. I initially gave up drinking to train for an Ironman, and I love my running and my sport, but also it can be whatever you want it to be. And that's what we really want to talk about now and talk about on the podcast, and just what opening doors it can do for you. So so
100%.
Where do you want to take it?
Well, I mean, so clearly you weren't doing Ironman before you quit drinking, right?
No, but I love to run.
Uh-huh.
I always loved to run. I ran a marathon back in 2009, which was the first time I did it. After I did everything like everybody else in a charity place, and wanted to raise some money for Macmillan Cancer Support because I lost my mum in 2007. So it was kind of wanted to give back to the support they had there. And I'd always been a keen runner at school, but early years, alcohol got in the way, and going out and having fun. So that kind of slipped. But so I wanted to get back into it. So yeah, I've run through my drinking times, and I stopped drinking to train for Ironman because I knew that it was going to be such a big hurdle. But there was a lot in between, which I'm sure we will uncover over the coming weeks. But yeah, for me, that's my new love, my new passion. And yeah, and I now just get to celebrate with a beer afterwards, but it's got 0.0 written on the side of it, which is always great.
Yeah, nice. And so how, cutting out the alcohol and switching to alcohol free, do you notice a huge amount of difference, or what's your
take?
Me,
it's for me, no, I still look forward to it. Yeah, it's funny enough, 4 years down the line, I still love to open that beer at the end of the week. But equally, I guess when I started my alcohol-free journey, I used to crack them open like I guess I used to crack open the beers. So they were a bit of crutch for me. They might not be for everybody. Yeah, I always enjoyed that, and it was something to lean on. But now, a 4-pack might last me a week rather than an hour. But but yeah. So what about yourself, James? How did you find yourself here at this stage?
Oh wow! Well, it's been pretty life changing for me to be quite honest, Steve. I mean, like I said, I'm coming up on 4 years. I'm gonna be 50 next month, 8th of August, 2025. Mark the calendar. And yeah, I kind of went alcohol free when I was 46, but I've been really trying to do that since I was around about 38, 39, 40. I kind of, never taken more than a week off alcohol since I started, when I was 16, 17, something like that. Never took more than a week off until I was in my late 30s. Because why would you, right? Why would you start drinking unless you had a problem with it? That was always very much my mentality. So I didn't really know what it was like on the other side of the island. I didn't know what it was like to not drink, and that kind of quite scared me. I thought I'd always needed alcohol in my life. And I wasn't a textbook alcoholic, but I was definitely drinking more than I should. Probably something in the region of 50 units a week on average. Obviously that fluctuated a bit over that period of time, over those decades. But I'd say when I was getting towards my 40s, it was probably around 40, 50 units a week. And, standard stuff really. It was, a few beers most evenings, binge at the weekends. I mean, I wasn't drinking vodka at 10 a.m. in the morning or anything like that. It was socially acceptable stuff. I was drinking the same amount as my peers. I come from a background of working in London throughout in my late 20s and my 30s. I worked for two of the big film companies, Universal Pictures and Warner Brothers. And then more recently, I became head of sales at Nintendo. So I'd always kind of had an entertainment background. And, as we'll come on and talk about your story as well. It's just going out after work every night when you work in London, isn't it? There's no need to drive. Everyone's on getting the tube home. So, you can just stop for a couple of beers. And that's what I did for best part of 2 decades. So it took a little while to kind of convince myself that I didn't need to do that. And when I took the break, and I'm sure we'll talk about this in subsequent episodes and how it all came about. Once I took the break, I took 60 days off alcohol, and I just never went back to it because, the way it made me feel in terms of, my motivation and my energy levels and my focus, my anxiety, was growing, and I just felt amazing. And once you've kind of seen that side of it, it's quite, you can't unlearn what you've learned. And I think that's one thing I found from people that I work with and that I coach is that once you show them what it's like, the toothpaste's out of the tube. It's quite difficult to put it back in, and that's what really helps people's desire for alcohol to kind of really dissipate. Once you've seen and you've experienced how good it is without it, there's no sense of loss. It's just, I just don't want to feel like that anymore. So it's been an amazing 4 years, and that's where I think we both ended up in the same place where we're coaching people, and we're working to kind of help other people experience what an alcohol-free lifestyle can be like, because it's just so transformative. And that's why I become a coach. I think that's why you have, and it's just such a brilliant community as well. So many fantastic people who are just sort of thriving alcohol-free, and it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
I love that. The toothpaste is out the tube. I've never heard that one before, and you can't put it back in. That's really great analogy, actually. When do you reckon for you that the toothpaste tube was empty and you realised you couldn't put it back?
Well, I mean, when I was 38, I tried to pinpoint when this all started. So when I was 38, I was going on a holiday to Abu Dhabi. My wife used to work for Etihad, Emirate Airline. You probably be familiar with Etihad, and we used to go there quite often because my wife Chris used to get hugely discounted flights and holidays. Anyway, cut a long story short, we're going to Abu Dhabi, and I was looking for an audiobook to download to kind of listen to on holiday, and I came across How to Control Alcohol by Alan Carr. And for anyone who's not familiar with Alan Carr, this isn't the toothy comedian. It's the guy who basically built an absolute fortune helping people quit cigarettes. So Alan Carr's famous for his quit smoking book. It helped my wife, Chris, quit smoking. She literally gave it up overnight, having read his book. And millions of other people have done it as well. So I saw this book, How to Control Alcohol, because I had this kind of, I guess an itch at the back of my head over a period of time that alcohol I wasn't fully in control of it anymore, and I was becoming more and more aware of this. And I came across this book, and I downloaded it purely because it was called Control Alcohol. If it had been quit alcohol, I wouldn't have been interested because I wasn't looking to quit alcohol. I was looking to get control back. So I downloaded this book and I listened to it on holiday. And my expectation was that this will help me kind of cut my drinking down, get my control back. But I read it and I went along with everything that Alan Carr spoke about. And all of a sudden, I was in a pool one day in Abu Dhabi, and I suddenly realized that I wasn't going to drink anymore. It literally just hit
Wow.
me like a bolt out of the blue, because at the end of the book, he says, look, I'm going to have to level with you here. This book's called How to Control Alcohol, because if it was called How to Quit Alcohol, no one would buy it. But the truth of the matter is, if you believe everything I've told you in this book, why would you carry on drinking? And I suddenly thought, shit. And I'd woken up this morning without that intention to do that. And
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that is absolutely incredible. And I stopped drinking instantly for 3 months. I fully intended never to drink again, but I made a massive mistake. I just started a new job. I just started a Nintendo, actually. And I was working in a client-facing role. And I was meeting a lot of new customers at social events. And I decided that, well, I've got this. I've done it. I've quit alcohol, no issues. And you know what I'm going to say, right? I thought I could switch this on and off when I want. I'll just switch it on to be social and I'll switch it back off again. 3 months later, right back where I started. Toothpaste was out of the tube. Couldn't put it back in again. And I was 38 at this point. And then I spent the next 8 years trying to get those 3 months back, where I could basically convince myself that I didn't need to drink anymore, but I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And then the final year, when I was 36, I went back to the books, the Quit Lit, and I started reading a ton of more books. And there were 3 books that completely changed my life. And they were, you'll probably know all 3 of these books. They were This Naked Mind by Annie Grace, Alcohol Explained by William Porter, and The Unexpected Joy of Being Sober by Catherine Gray. And those 3 books, when I read them, one led on to the other, got me back to the place where I was when I read Alan Carr. And that I rewired my thinking about alcohol, completely reframed how I saw it, and my desire to drink just disappeared. Not overnight, but over the course of a few weeks, I just thought, I'm not going to do this anymore.
Yeah.
And that's the last time I drank. That was 4 years ago coming up, and never looked back. So I believe it's about education. It's about reframing how you view alcohol. Because when you see it for what it really is, which is just poisonous substance, you get to a point where it doesn't have any benefits for you, doesn't help you socialize, doesn't relieve stress, doesn't help you sleep, doesn't give you confidence. We'll talk about all those things in the weeks and the months that come, all those beliefs that we have about alcohol. When you really scrutinize those and you realize none of that's true, it's all bullshit.
Yeah.
It's all social conditioning that we have around us since we're born to the day we die. When you realize that none of that's true, there's just no desire to do it anymore. And, as our friend and coach Andy Ramage says, you don't have to moderate or resist something that you don't have any desire to do.
Yeah.
That's very much right at the heart of how I coach people, is to help them dissolve that desire. And if they want to drink, they can, but they've got no desire to.
No, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, I don't have to moderate synchronized swimming, because I have absolutely no desire to go synchronized swimming. And
I only synchronized swim on a Saturday.
Do you? Yeah, I thought I'd seen you down the pool, but yeah, it's so true. It's so true. And like I said at the beginning of the podcast, this is an open space, and we just want to kind of spread the word, really, and show people that actually. I mean, for me, if I think back to, I grew up surrounded by alcohol, and that's the whole thing we talk about, isn't it? You're toasted into the world with a glass of champagne.
Yeah.
And when the day that we go toes up, we're seen on our way with a glass of champagne. And I'm so not anti-drinking. My wife drinks. I'm really happy to say that, just through not drinking, her alcohol consumption was never high, but it's very rare now that I see her actually have a glass of wine. If she does, that bottle will last her 3 or 4 days, or even longer. And I could never, I got to a stage where I could never that would never happen for me. That would
No,
never happen for me. I thought people that could open a bottle of wine and make it last a week came from another planet, if I was being honest with you. But I came into my parents were from Glasgow and they were incredibly social people. I grew up on a typical British housing estate. The only reason I wasn't born in Scotland was my dad joined the police and he was 2 inches too short to join the Scottish police. So he had to move to London. So I was born down in the south of the UK. But, growing up, my dad had a bar in the house. And we used to have people coming around, neighbours coming around, and
it was the 70s though, right?
It was the 70s, and it was a proper Del Boy style bar. It had optics.
Really?
But I totally remember, and this is why I can't be anti-drinking, because I just remember laughter ringing out, and it always did. And we went to the same place every year on holiday to a place called Puerto Puyanza in the north of Mallorca. And I think we went there for 30 years back to back. We knew all the waiters, all the bartenders, all the restaurant owners. And as soon as I got to an age where I could drink, maybe I had my first taste of alcohol very young, but like most, got pissed with my mates up the park. I remember a good mate of mine, Tristan, we used to go up the park and I would be drinking warm 33 French beers out of a case in my dad's garage.
33 export.
Yeah, exactly. And drinking.
You get a G3, right? You give him the ferry at Cherbourg. My dad.
Exactly. And we'd drink warm ones of those. And I remember it tasting absolutely disgusting, but I just associated everybody, and we all do, right? Our first taste of alcohol, we think, what the hell is that all about? Yeah. And then other people, you see them having fun, you think there's got to be something about it, right? So you keep trying.
Yeah.
And then it moved from that to, I don't want him to notice that the beers are gone. So we'd just take little bits off each optic and put it in a water bottle and go and drink it up the park, and just vile concoction. But then I remember the bartenders out in Mallorca, and there was that show bartending kind of thing to it. And I always wanted to work in hospitality. And I moved, I studied, I did all right. It wasn't great. I didn't get a degree, but I did a business and finance HND. So, because I got enough. I got my. Did you? There you go.
Yeah, your HND stands for?
Go on.
Have no degree.
Exactly that. Yeah, that's probably right. And my wife will remind me of that, as she does have a degree. And yeah, so I remember that, and I got my first job. After stacking shelves in a Waitrose, and I still remember being 16 and having an absolute stinking hangover, stacking shelves on a hot sunny day in Waitrose, and thinking, what is this all about? But then I then got old enough to work behind a bar, so I moved into a very high class bar called the Harvester in Bracknell. Yeah, it's a members bar.
Free salad bar.
Yeah, we got free access to the salad bar. So I worked there as a bartender, and then that was around about 1992, 1991, something like that. And then all of a sudden, this movie called Cocktail came out, and I was like, right, I'm having some of that. And everybody thinks you want to be Tom Cruise, but all the bartenders wanted to be Brian Brown, actually. And I joined TGI Fridays in Reading.
Obviously.
And started as a flair bartender. So me and my mate, the same mate that I used to go up the park drinking with, started picking up some bottles, throwing them around in his bedroom, shattering glass everywhere, but absolutely determined to become the next Tom Cruise and Brian Brown. We actually did all right as well. So Fridays used to have a bartending competition every year. I did that for a while. I went off around Australia and took a year out, like everybody does, did the backpacking thing, and just spent that entire trip drunk, I think. I think back now, I was like, all these beautiful places I went to. But mind you, you know what? We had a great time. I had lots of mates who lived in Munich, so we used to go to the Oktoberfest, and there was loads of drinking going on all the time. And drinking just became a lifestyle. Yeah. When I came back from traveling, I then moved to work again for TGI's, and I worked in London's West End at Haymarket, which was the busiest site in the world. And we just became almost rock star bartenders, really. We were going around, all the bars were free drinking. We would start going out at 1 a.m. and we earned cash. We earned bundles of cash, because I hope the HMRC ain't listening, but it's long enough ago now. But in the mid 90s, late 90s, all your tips were cash free. And we'd finish a Saturday night with 300-400 quid in cash tips in our pocket back then. And some mornings you'd wake up and it'd be gone. So we'd literally go out drinking until the early hours, and then we'd go to Chinatown, and we need the restaurants in Chinatown that serve you wine and beer in teapots because it was late license, and we'd come back to work in the morning after a blinding night out and be given a Bloody Mary by our boss and told to get back into it. So it was just so accepted. So yeah, I mean,
now when you're that age, you've got that resilience to sort of get up and go the next
yeah,
day.
totally. At that age,
It's men enough
at that
for
age,
it would
yeah,
never happen.
yeah. So I kind of that was me, and I just kind of continued with that through my entire bartending career. And I did some great thing. I went off and did some, bartended for some amazing events like for U2 and Madonna and loads of backstage bars and everything. So I thought it was just, this was the life, but underneath, I guess all the way through, I kind of knew I was drinking too much. And I stayed in hospitality. I'd moved into management and it didn't really change, but yeah, well, as I moved into my 40s, I became a dad at the age of, crikey, it's 11 years ago now. So I'd have been 41 when I became a dad. And then that's when things started to shift a little bit for me. And I thought, you know what, why are you still drinking like you're 20? I was in hospitality, so I would end up going, I was in operations management. So we'd go out and we'd be drinking on the company business card and would yada, 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 get back to the train station to go home after too many drinks. I remember one night we even booked a flight to Munich and we all went off into Munich. It was
on a whim, or literally just
on a whim. No, we didn't go that night. We booked it for that weekend, but we went.
Okay.
No, we booked in that night. It's all because we saw a German beer behind the bar, and it was just like. So I do remember these great times, but actually, cutting a long story short, I then started to try and take a break from alcohol, and I did that like everyone, dry January. My birthday's the 1st of February, so I'd always celebrate with a drink, and I'd always white knuckle it, thinking I've got to get to January, and that was the tough thing. And I tried it. Most times I'd fail it. But I had one moment where I exactly the same night as I've discussed, too many drinks, got on the train, fell asleep and woke up in a place called Alton, which is at the end of the train line from London's West End. Yeah, it was about 1 a.m. and I had to get a 50 or 60 quid taxi ride home. And I was a new dad. And I was like, what the hell is going on? So that was kind of a shifting point for me. And I'd love to say I stopped drinking there and then, but I didn't. I carried on. But then the guilt started to really creep in. There's other podcasts where I've talked about my running, and I'm sure we'll talk about things like that later, but I don't want it to be necessarily about that. But I then decided, like I said, I needed something different. So I signed up for Ironman, and that's when I decided to take a break. And suddenly I started to replace it with something that I love just as much as drinking. And that was a real shift for me. That was a massive shift for me. But I knew that I would have to get up at 6 a.m. to go and be in the pool or out for a run. And I knew to do that, I'd have to cut it out. But again, like you, it was always going to be a 3-month break. And I got to 3 months and I started to think, and I remember it like you, I think you said, you remember exactly when that happened. You were in that pool. I was out walking the dog and it was a spring morning. No, it wasn't. It was a frosty winter's morning and the sun came out, and I'm lucky enough to live near the North Downs. And I was walking the dog and it was one of those beautiful frosty mornings. And it was literally like everything moved into Technicolor or Ultra HD. And I was like, shit, this is amazing. And actually, like, my senses have come alive. How long have I been dulling them without realizing it? And that was when it shifted for me. But I reckon I was probably 2 years before I really said out loud, I'm not going to drink again. And like you, I have no desire to do it anymore. I think I always knew at that point, but to say it out loud was kind of scary for me. But now, I love that now. And I genuinely cannot say enough that my life is better in every way through not drinking. But it took a while to get there. And you don't know what you don't know, right? And that's what, like you say, when we're coaching our clients, it's that unknown, because you think, how the hell can I possibly, as Andy says, how would I ever dance at a wedding? How will I ever go on an all-inclusive holiday? How will I ever do these things without drinking? Because you feel that you can never do them. And when someone tells you it's possible, you just think, what a load of crap. But it is.
You've got to try it yourself, right? You've got to
exactly
building a muscle.
Exactly.
You have to try it out.
Yeah.
I think just everything that you've said there, Steve, I guess for full disclosure for anyone listening, we don't really know each other that well. We've only met a few times and connected, so we don't really know each other's stories inside out. But just everything that you were describing there, I was thinking, yep. There's so much there that resonates with my journey. And I think one of the things that we want to try and, help people really get clarity on, with these podcasts is that our stories are incredibly similar, and they're like everybody else's. We're no different from everybody else. And actually, it's incredibly common how similar people's journeys and their relationships with alcohol are. You touched upon it earlier there about, not having an off switch, and about, how your wife can take it or leave it. My wife can also take it or leave it. But actually, that isn't very common. The more common response to alcohol, because, it's addictive, is to not have an off switch. But people who don't have an off switch, which definitely is you and me and a lot of other people I know, think that, well, it's just me that can't say no once I've started. But that's the default response. It's not people who can just stop after one or two. Most people can't do that. That isn't particularly common.
Yeah.
And I see so many people of our age in their 40s who are on a similar journey, and you're so right. It's, you don't know what you don't know. It's that saying of, when you're inside the jar, you can't read the label. And until you've actually tried it, but it just takes so much courage to actually break away from what everybody else is doing, because, we are pack animals, we're tribal creatures, we do what the tribe does. And it feels incredibly jarring and unnatural to us to do something different from everybody else. And everyone drinks, 82% of the population drink, right? So it doesn't feel right not to do it. Our bodies tell us, oh, don't do that. That's no. There's danger there. Do what everybody else is doing. It'd be nice and safe.
Yeah.
But you've got to try it. You've got to kind of, take that break, see what it's like. Because if you've never taken a break, and I'm going to ask you about dry January in a minute, but if the way that I coach people is to take 60 days off rather than 30, because I think in those 60 days, you can get it completely out of your system, and shit happens in life within 60 days that you can't get away from. So my experience with dry January with people I've coached and just what I observe is, I'm personally not a big fan of dry January, which sounds a bit strange coming from, someone who's alcohol free and who coaches people alcohol free, because I just think the mindset is all wrong with dry January. And you mentioned it there about white knuckling it. And, you can, when I did, one thing I didn't mention before when I was describing my story, in those 8 years from when I read Alan Carr to when I read the other books, I went through seasonal alcohol dieting. And what I mean by that is, I'd take a month off, then I'd take 2 months, and then 3 months. And by the last kind of couple of years of my drinking, I got to the point where I was going alcohol free January to March, then going crazy all through the summer, and then taking September to November off, and then going crazy through Christmas. And this seasonal, kind of alcohol dieting kind of went on for a couple of years, because I couldn't get it over the line. I just couldn't make it stick for good. And part of the reason I wasn't able to do that is because I'm a really big fan of live sport. Live sport's my thing. I've been going to football, rugby, F1, with my best friends for over 30 years. And I just kept thinking, how's sport going to work without alcohol? How is going to the football going to work if we're not drinking all day? And I thought, I'm going to lose, the social activity with my best friends if I start drinking. And that kept me locked. That kept me locked into it. But when I took a prolonged break, over 30 days, over 60 days into the 90 days, you're forced to do things that come along in life. You can hide yourself away for a month during dry January and just go, you know what, I'm not going to go out. I'm just going to stay in for 4 weeks. And you can kind of just get away with that. But it's really difficult to do that for a prolonged period of time, like over 3 months, because stuff comes along. Weddings come along, holidays come along, Christmas comes along, whatever it may be. And that's what really made the difference, is going for that really long break and just forcing yourself into situations where, okay, I feel a bit uncomfortable going out and socializing with alcohol, but I'm going to force myself to do it. And the first 2 or 3 times, it's a bit jarring. But then once you get the hang of it and you build that muscle and you build that kind of strength and you figure out how to do it, all of a sudden that becomes the normal way of doing it. And that's when you kind of break through that, that limiting belief that we all have that, I couldn't go to football without drinking. Well, we tried it. We tried it a few times. Well, no, we'll try it. See how, with the support of other people who've been through it and using good strategies and tactics. And that's what made the difference. What's your view? What do you think of dry January?
Yeah, no, I'm of a similar ilk as well. I mean, I think it's about ticking those things off, isn't it? It's about every time you do one of those events sober, the next time you try and do it, it's that 5% easier, and it's just that voice that comes back on your shoulder that says, oh, you could have a drink tonight. It just goes away over time. It just fades. It's weaker and weaker until you've then got control of it. I mean, yeah, dry January. I think it raises awareness. I think that's a good part. I think. mm, what does everybody do? I mean, the Stoptober, you can buy a pass, right? So you can actually, you can donate money on Stoptober, and by doing that, you get a day to drink, and that money goes to
What?
yeah,
I didn't know that.
the day,
That's insane.
the other day. So I mean, I think it does raise awareness, and I think if it helps people take it to that next stage, the better. Yeah, I mean, but I've yet to meet anyone that's done 100 days and thought that was a bad idea.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's just, I think you need to retrain your body a little bit. Is 30 days enough? I guess, depending, everybody's different. It can be, I guess, but for me, it wouldn't have been enough. And for me, it was always about white knuckling. It was always about getting to the 1st of February and having a few beers. I even remember years ago doing it, and we had a works do, and I waited until midnight and then just went crazy. So I kind of think at that point, what's the point? I think once you've got 100 days under your belt, you've probably learned enough to make an informed decision. That's the thing. And I tell anyone I'm coaching, it's your decision. And if you decide after a month that it's not for you, then fine, But I would always encourage, that 90-day break is key for me.
I think I've always just found when people take 60 or a 90-day break, there's only ever two outcomes. And one of those outcomes is like you and I have, they walk away from it altogether and like, I'm just not interested anymore. Or they massively scale back their drinking to a point where they have control over it. And I'm sure we'll talk about moderation and things like that on future episodes. But once you've seen the other side of the island and you've experienced it, your desire for drinking just diminishes massively. And that way you're in a position then where, yeah, I could go out and drink if I wanted to. I'm not saying I'm completely alcohol free. I'm never going to drink. I could go out and have a glass of wine at that wedding if I really want to, but I don't really particularly want to because I've experienced what it's like when I don't do it. And that change of awareness is what makes all the difference. So I think people are a bit scared of the idea of saying never or, forever. I'm never going to drink again ever. And I kind of encourage people to not say that because it's too big. It's just too big, and I say to people, just do what you feel like doing on the day. If you don't want to drink, don't drink. You don't have to say forever because that's what scares people off, I think.
Yeah.
When you have that, that comparison of seeing what the two things are like when you are drinking, when you're not, you just get control back when you take that break. If you don't want to say forever, don't say forever. If you want to have a drink at a wedding, have a drink at a wedding. You drink under your terms, but you have to have that experience of having a prolonged break and getting out of your system to be able to get that control back. And those really are the only two outcomes, I think, with taking a long break from alcohol. It's one or the other.
That's it.
Either way, it's a win.
Yeah. I often say we're alive for around 4,000 weeks is how long we're on the earth. So what's 12? Just to see what it's like. And then make your own choice.
Yeah.
And if it's not for you, I'll be the first to buy you a beer. But for me, it would be an alcohol-free one. But too. But there's no judgment on it because, like you say, 8% of the world's population drinks, and so I think for me that's what I want to kind of deliver on this podcast is just an open kind of forum on it really, and hopefully going forward we'll have some guests coming on and chat their lived experience. But I think you saying there, we haven't really known each other that long, but we trained as coaches together, and there was probably 40-50 people right on our coaching training, and I would say 50% of those were alcohol free, and every story exactly the same as ours. And talking through my story back there, some of it sounds like it was quite some debauchery in terms of the drinking, but actually it wasn't. It was just what everybody else does. It's what everybody else does, and there's recommended daily weekly intake of alcohol, but really, does everybody do that? And
it's totally arbitrary. It's 14 units a week, right?
Yeah.
It depends on where you live. In Canada, it's the 3 units. In America, it's 24. In the UK, it's 14. It's entirely arbitrary. I always go by the World Health Organization's number, and that's 0.
Yeah.
It's an arbitrary number.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Well, it's been it's been fun.
It has.
Good to get the wheels in motion and kind of start moving forward with this. And
So we can do this every week?
Yeah, we're going to run this every week. We will come out to you weekly. Plan is to roll this out on a Monday every week, and we'll have some guests coming along to join us. We will be doing maybe some on our own, maybe some more, but generally all together. And we'll have some guests coming down and want to talk about the joys of it, and also, the difficult stuff too. So it's been awesome to catch up. It's been awesome to see you. I know these studios are at least £500 an hour, so
Crazy money.
we better wrap it up. And yeah, look forward to catching up next week. Have a wonderful week. And
you too, mate.
everyone.